I overheard my wife mock me as just good for laundry and dishes, so I stopped doing everything and forced her to learn what respect truly costs. I had just finished a long day at work, looking forward to relaxing at home with my wife. The sound of laughter echoed from the living room as I hung up my jacket. She was having her weekly get-together with 3 of her closest friends. I could hear their animated conversation and figured I would just say a quick hello before giving them their space. As I approached the living room, I caught fragments of their conversation. They were discussing their husbands, sharing stories and complaints. I was about to announce my presence when I heard my wife's voice cut through the chatter with crystal clarity. "Oh, please do not get me started on mine," she said with a dismissive laugh. "Honestly, he is just good for laundry and dishes. That is about all he brings to the table these days." The room erupted in laughter. One of her friends chimed in. "At least you have got him trained for something useful." More laughter followed. I froze in the hallway, my hands still on the door frame. The woman I had been married to for 6 years. The woman I worked hard to provide for, the woman I helped maintain our home for, had just reduced me to nothing more than a household servant in front of her friends. "Seriously though," my wife continued, "sometimes I wonder what I am even keeping him around for. He does the boring stuff while I handle everything that actually matters." The blood rushed to my face, but not from embarrassment, from pure controlled anger. I had heard enough. I walked into the living room with measured steps, my expression calm, but my eyes sharp. The conversation stopped instantly as 4 pairs of eyes turned toward me. My wife's face went pale, clearly realizing I had overheard everything. "Good evening, ladies," I said with a cold smile. "Do not mind me. I was just coming to say hello to my wife and her friends." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Her friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats, suddenly very interested in their wine glasses. I looked directly at my wife, my voice steady and controlled. "Interesting conversation you are having. Please do not let me interrupt. I would love to hear more about what you think I bring to this relationship." She forced a nervous laugh, trying to play it off. "Oh, you know how it is. Just girl talk. We were just joking around." "Joking around," I repeated slowly, letting the words hang in the air. "About how I am only good for laundry and dishes. About how you wonder what you are keeping me around for." The room was dead silent now. Her friends looked like they wanted to disappear into the furniture. "It was not like that," she stammered, but I could see the panic in her eyes. She knew exactly how it sounded. I nodded slowly as if considering her words. "You know what? You are absolutely right about one thing. I am good at laundry and dishes. Very good, actually. But here is what is interesting. You seem to think that is all I am worth." I turned to her friends with that same cold smile. "Ladies, I hope you enjoyed your evening. I think it is time for me to have a private conversation with my wife." The women scrambled to gather their things, muttering awkward goodbyes and rushing toward the door. My wife tried to walk them out, but I remained standing in the living room waiting. When she returned, she attempted to control the situation. "Look, you are overreacting. It was just harmless venting between friends. Every wife does it. Every wife reduces their husband to hired help in front of company?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "That is not what I was doing," she protested, but her voice lacked conviction. I walked closer to her, maintaining eye contact. "Let me make something very clear. If you think I am only good for laundry and dishes, then you are about to find out what life looks like without someone who is good at those things." Her expression shifted from defensive to confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, tomorrow morning you are going to discover just how much this household depends on someone who is just good for laundry and dishes, and you are going to learn that lesson the hard way." I headed toward the stairs, then paused and turned back. "Oh, and one more thing. If you ever disrespect me like that again in front of anyone, you will find out that I am good at a lot more than just household chores. I am also very good at making decisions that stick." As I walked up the stairs, I could hear her calling after me, trying to minimize what had happened. But something fundamental had shifted in that moment. She had shown me exactly how little she valued me, and now I was going to show her exactly what she had taken for granted. The next morning was going to be very educational for both of us. The next morning arrived with the sound of my alarm at 6:30, just like every other day. But today would be different. Today, I would show my wife the true value of someone who is just good for laundry and dishes. I got up, showered, and dressed for work with my usual routine. But as I walked past the kitchen, I did not start the coffee maker. I did not load the dishwasher with last night's dinner plates. I did not throw a load of laundry into the machine before heading out. Instead, I grabbed my travel mug, filled it with water, and made instant coffee. My wife was still sleeping, blissfully unaware that her comfortable world was about to shift dramatically when she finally came downstairs around 8 o'clock. I was sitting at the kitchen table, fully dressed and ready for work, calmly sipping my coffee while reading the news on my phone. "Morning," she mumbled, heading straight for the coffee maker. She pressed the button, and nothing happened. She pressed it again, then looked at me with confusion. "Coffee is not made," I said without looking up from my phone. "Yeah, I can see that. Why did not you make it?" I finally looked up, meeting her eyes with complete calm. "Because I am apparently just good for laundry and dishes, and since that is all you value me for, I have decided to help you understand what that really means." She stared at me for a moment, then laughed nervously. "Come on, you are not seriously still upset about last night I told you was just girl talk." "I am not upset," I replied, standing up and putting my mug in the sink without washing it. "I am enlightened. You have helped me understand my role in this marriage very clearly." I walked toward the door, grabbing my keys. "From now on, since you seem to think I am only good for those specific tasks, I am going to stop doing them entirely. That way, you can discover just how much you actually need someone who handles the boring stuff." Her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. "You are not serious." "Dead serious," I said, my hand on the doorknob. "You wanted to know what you were keeping me around for? Well, now you will have the opportunity to figure that out. I will be taking care of my own meals, my own laundry, and my own space. Everything else is now your responsibility." "This is ridiculous," she said, but I could hear the uncertainty creeping into her voice. "Is it?" I asked, turning back to face her. "Yesterday, you told your friends that doing laundry and dishes was all I was good for, so logically, if I stopped doing those things, then by your own assessment, I would be completely useless to you, right?" She opened her mouth to respond, but I continued before she could speak. "But here is the thing. I do not believe that is true. I think you are about to discover that I contribute far more to this household than you ever realized. And when you do, you are going to understand that respect is not something you can withhold from this person who makes your life possible." I opened the door, then paused. "Oh, and before I forget, there is a load of your delicates in the hamper that need to be hand-washed. Your black dress for tonight's dinner with your sister. It is in there too. Good luck figuring out how to get that wine stain out without ruining the fabric." Her eyes widened. She had completely forgotten about the dinner plans. "You would not," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "I am not doing anything," I replied with a slight smile. "I am simply not doing what you clearly think anyone could do. After all, if it is so simple that I am just good for it, then it should not be a problem for you to handle." As I walked to my car, I could hear her calling after me, but I did not turn around. This was not about punishment. It was about recognition. She needed to understand that taking someone for granted has consequences. At work, I felt more focused than I had in months. For the first time, in a long time, I was not worried about rushing home to handle the evening chores. I was not mentally planning which loads of laundry needed to be done, or what needed to be cleaned before bed. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from her. "Okay, I get it, you made your point. Can we talk about this like adults?" I typed back, "There is nothing to discuss. You made your position clear last night. I am simply respecting your assessment of my value," she replied immediately. "That is not what I meant, and you know it." My response was brief. "Actions have consequences. You will figure it out." I put my phone away and focused on my work. This was not about being petty or vindictive. This was about establishing boundaries that should have been in place from the beginning. When I arrived home that evening, the house told the story of her day. The breakfast dishes were still in the sink. The coffee maker had dried coffee grounds scattered around it. The laundry hamper was overflowing, and I could see wet clothes hanging haphazardly on chairs, her amateur attempt at hand-washing. She was in the kitchen looking frazzled and frustrated, trying to scrub something in the sink. "How was your day?" I asked casually, as if nothing had changed. She looked up, her face flushed with frustration. "Fine," she said curtly. "Just fine," I nodded and went to the refrigerator, pulling out ingredients for my own dinner. As I began cooking for one, I could feel her watching me. "You are really going to keep this up?" she asked. "Keep what up?" I replied, not looking at her. "I am just being exactly what you said I was. Nothing more, nothing less." The kitchen fell silent except for the sound of my cooking. For the first time in our marriage, she was beginning to understand that respect is not optional. It is earned, and it can be withdrawn. By day 3, the house looked like a crime scene, a domestic crime scene. I maintained my morning routine with military precision. Shower, dress, grab my lunch that I had prepared the night before, and head to work. but the chaos I left behind was becoming more evident each day. The kitchen counter was a battlefield of dirty dishes, coffee-stained mugs, and takeout containers. The living room had magazines scattered across the coffee table along with empty glasses and plates from her snacking. But the real disaster was the laundry situation. She had attempted to do a load of colors and whites together, turning half of her white blouses into a lovely shade of pink. The expensive silk shirt she needed for work was now wrinkled beyond recognition because she had left it in the dryer for 2 days. And the hand wash items, they were still sitting in the sink, now with a distinct smell that suggested they had moved beyond the point of simple cleaning. When I came home that evening, I found her standing in the kitchen staring at the disaster with the look of someone who had just realized they were in over their head. "Good evening," I said pleasantly, stepping around the mess to access the refrigerator. "This is insane," she said, gesturing at the chaos around us. "The house is falling apart." "Is it?" I asked, pulling out ingredients for my dinner. "Or is it just revealing how much work was actually being done that you never noticed?" She watched me navigate around the mess with practiced ease, preparing my meal in the one clean corner of the kitchen. "I never realized how much," she started, then stopped herself. "How much what?" I prompted, not looking up for my cooking. "How much you actually did around here," she admitted quietly. I paused my prep work and looked at her directly. "Yesterday you told your friends I was only good for laundry and dishes. Today you are discovering that even those simple tasks are more complex than you thought." Her face flushed. "I did not mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" I asked, returning to my cooking. "Because from where I was standing, it sounded like you were telling them that I contribute nothing of value to this relationship except menial labor." The silence stretched between us as she struggled with how to respond. "I was just venting," she said finally. "Sometimes I get frustrated and say things I do not mean." "Venting," I repeated, tasting the word. "So when you are frustrated with me, you humiliate me in front of your friends by reducing me to hired help." She had no answer for that. I finished cooking my dinner and sat down to eat, watching her survey the disaster that had become our home. She kept glancing at me, clearly expecting me to offer solutions or jump in to help. "The washing machine is making a weird noise," she said after a few minutes, "probably because you overloaded it," I replied calmly. "Or used the wrong settings. Can you look at it?" I took a bite of my dinner and considered her request. I thought I was only good for laundry and dishes. If the machine is broken, would not that be a problem for someone who actually matters in this relationship? Her frustration finally boiled over. "Fine, I was wrong." "Okay, is that what you want to hear?" "I want to hear that you understand what you did," I said, setting down my fork. "This is not about being right or wrong. This is about respect." She slumped into a chair across from me, looking defeated. "I do not know how to fix this." "Fix what, the washing machine or the fact that you took me for granted?" "Both," she said quietly. I studied her face for a moment. She looked genuinely overwhelmed, but I needed to be sure this was real understanding, not just temporary frustration. "Here is what is going to happen," I said. "You are going to figure out how to manage this household on your own for the rest of the week. No help from me, no shortcuts, no calling your mother or hiring someone. You are going to learn exactly what it takes to maintain the life you have been living." "That is not fair," she protested. "Fair?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Was it fair when you told your friends I was only good for grunt work? Was it fair when you dismissed everything I do as if it were meaningless?" She looked down at her hands. "No, it was not." "Then we understand each other," I said, standing up and washing my single plate and utensils. "When you can tell me exactly what you have learned from this experience, and when you can do it without making excuses or trying to minimize what you did, then we can talk about moving forward." As I headed upstairs to my study, I could hear her moving around the kitchen, trying to tackle the mountain of dishes. The sound of clinking plates and running water followed me up the stairs. Later that night, as I was reading in bed, I heard her struggling with the vacuum cleaner in the living room. Then came the sound of something falling over, followed by a frustrated sigh. I closed my book and listened. For the first time in years, she was experiencing the reality of maintaining our home, not just the surface-level tidying she occasionally did, but the actual work of keeping everything functional and organized. My phone buzzed with a text from her, even though she was just downstairs. "I cannot get the stain out of the carpet. What do I do?" I typed back. "Figure it out." I am apparently just good for laundry and dishes, remember? The house went quiet after that, except for the sound of her moving around downstairs well past midnight. She was beginning to understand that the life she had taken for granted required someone who cared enough to maintain it. And tomorrow, the lesson would continue. By the end of the week, my wife had reached what I could only describe as a breaking point. But I was not finished with the lesson yet. Friday afternoon, I received a panicked text. "My mother is coming for dinner Sunday. Please, can we just talk about this?" I smiled as I read it. Her mother, the woman who had raised her to believe that a well-maintained home was a reflection of a woman's worth. The same woman who would walk through our house with eagle eyes, noting every detail that was out of place. My response was simple. "Sunday sounds perfect. I am sure she will enjoy seeing how you have been managing things." When I arrived home that evening, I found her in full crisis mode. She had spent the day attempting to restore order to the chaos, but without the proper knowledge or technique. She was making things worse. The living room looked like a tornado had hit it. She had tried to move furniture to vacuum underneath, but had not put it back properly. The kitchen was a disaster zone of cleaning supplies and half-finished attempts at organization, and the smell from the laundry room suggested that the load of towels she had attempted to wash had been sitting wet in the machine for days. "I cannot do this," she said. The moment I walked in, her hair was disheveled, her clothes were stained with cleaning products, and she looked like she had not slept in days. "Cannot do what I asked," maintaining my calm demeanor. "This?" She gestured wildly at the chaos around us. "I cannot keep the house running like you do. I do not know how you made it look so effortless." "Effortless?" I raised an eyebrow. "Is that what you thought it was?" She stared at me, and I could see the realization dawning in her eyes. "You spend hours every day on this stuff, did not you? Hours that you never noticed," I confirmed. "Hours that you dismissed as just laundry and dishes." Her shoulders sagged. "I am sorry. I am so sorry. I never realized." "You never realized what?" I pressed. "That maintaining a home requires skill, time, and effort? That the person doing it deserves respect for their contribution?" "Yes," she whispered. "All of it." I walked to the kitchen and surveyed the damage. "Your mother arrives Sunday at 2 o'clock. That gives you about 36 hours to figure out how to make this place presentable." Her face went pale. "You are not going to help me?" "Help you?" I asked. "I thought I was only good for laundry and dishes. Surely someone who handles everything that actually matters can manage a simple dinner party." She looked around the house with growing panic. "She is going to think I am a complete failure." "Are you?" I asked pointedly. "No," she said quickly. "I mean, I do not know. I never had to prove it before." I moved closer to her, my voice dropping to a serious tone. "Here is what I think. I think you have been coasting on my efforts for years while convincing yourself that what I did not matter. You got comfortable taking credit for a well-run household that you never actually maintained." Tears welled up in her eyes. "That is not true, is not it?" I challenged. "When your friends complimented our home, did you mention that I was the one who cleaned it? When your mother praised your hosting skills, did you tell her that I was the one who prepared everything behind the scenes?" She could not answer because we both knew the truth. "I need you to understand something," I continued. "This is not about punishment. This is about recognition. You need to see me as a partner who contributes value to this relationship, not as someone who exists to handle the tasks you consider beneath you." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I do see you that way." "No, you do not," I said firmly. "If you did, you never would have spoken about me the way you did. You would have defended me instead of mocking me." The weight of her actions was finally sinking in. She looked around the chaotic house and back at me. "What do you want me to do?" she asked quietly. "I want you to figure out how to clean up this mess," I said. "I want you to understand what it takes to maintain the life you have been living. And then I want you to decide whether you think the person who is doing all of this deserves respect." She nodded slowly, understanding that this was about more than just housework. "And if I do all that, then we will talk about whether there is a future for this marriage," I said. "Because I will not spend another day being treated like hired help by the person who is supposed to be my partner." I headed upstairs, leaving her alone with the chaos she had created. Through the bedroom window, I could see her standing in the living room, slowly turning in a circle as she surveyed the magnitude of what she needed to accomplish. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "Can you at least tell me how to get the smell out of the towels?" I typed back, "YouTube is your friend. Figure it out." This was not cruelty. It was education. She needed to understand that the person she had dismissed as just good for laundry and dishes had been the foundation that her entire comfortable life was built on. By Sunday, she would either prove that she could rise to the challenge, or she would prove that she truly did not value what I brought to the relationship. Either way, I would have my answer. Sunday morning arrived, with the sound of my wife frantically moving around the house at 6 o'clock a.m. I had been awake for 20 minutes listening to her desperate attempt to transform our home from disaster zone to something presentable for her mother's visit. When I came downstairs at 7 o'clock, I found her on her hands and knees in the living room, scrubbing carpet stains with tears streaming down her face. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her clothes were soaked with cleaning solution, and she looked like she had been awake all night. "Good morning," I said calmly, stepping around her to make my coffee. She looked up at me with red, exhausted eyes. "I cannot get this stain out. I have tried everything." I glanced at the carpet. She had managed to make the stain worse by using the wrong cleaning products, creating a larger, more noticeable mark than what she had started with. "That is unfortunate," I said, sipping my coffee. "Please," she whispered, "just tell me what to do." I looked at her kneeling on the floor, defeated and desperate, and I realized this was the moment I had been waiting for, not because I enjoyed seeing her struggle, but because this was the first time she was truly seeing the value of what I contributed. "Stand up," I said quietly. She struggled to her feet, wiping her hands on her already stained shirt. "Look at me," I continued. "What do you see?" She studied my face, confused by the question. "I see my husband." "And what do you see your husband as?" I pressed. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I see someone who I took for granted, someone who made my life possible and I never appreciated it." "Keep going," I said. "I see someone who deserves respect and recognition for everything he does. Someone who—" She paused, struggling with the words. "Someone who I treated like he was disposable." I set down my coffee cup and moved closer to her. "What you said to your friends was not just disrespectful to me, it was disrespectful to yourself. You were telling them that you were married to someone worthless, which means you were telling them that you settled for less than you deserved." She had not thought of it that way before I could see the realization hitting her. "But I know that is not true," I continued, "and deep down you know it is not true either. You know that I am not just good for laundry and dishes. You know that I have been the foundation that allowed you to focus on the things you thought were more important." "Yes," she said, her voice stronger now. "I know that." "Then why did you say it?" She was quiet for a long moment, thinking. "Because I was trying to fit in. Because complaining about husbands is what they expected to hear. Because I was being shallow and stupid and I did not think about how it would sound or how it would hurt you. And if I could do it over again, I would have told them how lucky I am to have a husband who cares enough about our home and our life together to make sure everything runs smoothly. I would have told them that you contribute in ways that make everything else possible." I nodded slowly. "Your mother arrives in 6 hours. This house is still a disaster. What are you going to do?" She looked around the chaos, then back at me. "I am going to ask you to teach me, not to do it for me, but to show me how to do it right, and what are you going to do differently going forward? I am going to participate in maintaining our home instead of leaving it all to you. I am going to appreciate what you do instead of dismissing it. And I am never going to disrespect you like that again." I studied her face, looking for any sign that this was just temporary desperation, but what I saw was genuine understanding and remorse. "All right," I said finally. "We have 6 hours to fix this, but we are doing it together as partners. I will teach you, but you are going to do the work." The relief that washed over her face was immediate. "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet," I said with a slight smile. "You have no idea how much work we need to do. For the next 6 hours, I guided her through the proper way to clean each room. I showed her how to treat different types of stains, how to organize efficiently, and how to maintain quality while working quickly. She followed my instructions exactly, asking questions and taking mental notes. By the time her mother arrived, the house looked better than it had in months. Not because I had done it for her, but because she had learned to do it properly under my guidance. When her mother complimented the beautiful home, my wife looked at me and said, "Thank you, but I have to give credit where it is due. My husband is the one who makes this possible. I am just learning to help him maintain what he has built." Her mother looked surprised by this acknowledgement, but pleased. Later that evening, after her mother had left, my wife sat down next to me on the couch. "I understand now," she said quietly. "I understand what I almost lost. And what was that? A partner who cared enough about our life together to make sure it worked even when I did not notice or appreciate it." I took her hand. "The question is, what are you going to do with that understanding?" "I am going to make sure you never doubt your value in this relationship again," she said. "And I am going to make sure I never forget how much you contribute to our life together." For the first time in a week, I smiled at her. "Then we can move forward." The lesson was complete. She had learned that respect is not something you can take for granted. It has to be earned, maintained, and reciprocated. And I had learned that sometimes the only way to show someone your worth is to stop doing the things that demonstrate it. 3 months had passed since that night when I overheard my wife's cruel words to her friends. 3 months since I made the decision to stop accepting disrespect in my own home. And now, as I watched her carefully folding laundry while humming quietly to herself, I realized how much had changed. She had kept her word every single day since that Sunday with her mother. She had participated in maintaining our home, not because I demanded it, but because she finally understood that a partnership meant both people contributing to the foundation that made everything else possible. "I'm going to start dinner," she announced, looking up from the laundry basket. "Any requests?" I looked at her with amusement. "Since when do you ask me what I want for dinner?" She paused, a slight smile crossing her face. "Since I learned that your preferences actually matter in this relationship." The transformation had not been immediate or perfect. There had been moments of frustration when she struggled with tasks that seemed simple to me. There had been conversations where she still defaulted to old patterns of thinking. But each time she caught herself and corrected course. More importantly, she had begun to see me differently. When her friends came over now, she spoke about me with respect and appreciation. When her family visited, she made sure they understood that our well-maintained home was a team effort, not just her natural domestic abilities. "I have something I want to tell you," she said, setting down the shirt she was folding. "What is that?" She walked over and sat beside me on the couch. "I called my friends from that night. All 3 of them. I raised an eyebrow and I told them exactly what happened after they left. I told them how wrong I was and how much I had taken you for granted. I told them that anyone who thinks maintaining a home is easy has never actually tried to do it properly." How did they react? 2 of them were supportive. They admitted they sometimes take their own husbands for granted too. But one of them, she paused, shaking her head. One of them said I was being dramatic and that men should just handle the household stuff because women have more important things to worry about. "And what did you say to that?" Her expression grew serious. "I told her that anyone who thinks their partner's contributions do not matter probably does not deserve those contributions. And I told her that I was not going to be friends with someone who encourages me to disrespect my marriage." I felt a surge of pride. This was exactly the kind of backbone I had hoped she would develop. "You ended the friendship." "I ended the friendship," she confirmed. I realized that surrounding myself with people who think it is acceptable to mock and diminish their partners was part of the problem. I was becoming like them. I reached over and took her hand. "That took courage. It took perspective," she corrected. "The same perspective that showed me what I was about to lose." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both reflecting on how far we had come. "I need to ask you something," she said finally. "Are you happy with how things are now?" I considered the question carefully. "I am happy that you see me as a partner instead of hired help. I am happy that you appreciate what I bring to our relationship. But more than that, I am happy that you respect yourself enough to demand that same appreciation from others." "What do you mean?" "When you dismissed me as just good for laundry and dishes, you were not just disrespecting me. You were disrespecting yourself by settling for what you thought was a mediocre partner. Now you know better." She squeezed my hand. "I know that I am married to someone who makes my life better in ways I never even noticed. Someone who cares enough about our future together to make sure the foundation is solid. And I know that I am married to someone who can learn and grow when it matters," I replied. "Someone who can admit when she is wrong and do the work to make it right." As we sat there together, I realized that the lesson had been as much for me as it had been for her. I had learned that demanding respect does not make you demanding, it makes you worthy of respect. I had learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept being treated poorly. "There is one more thing," she said, standing up and walking to the kitchen. She returned with a small wrapped box. "What is this?" "Open it." Inside was a simple keychain with an engraving. "To the man who makes everything possible." I looked up at her, surprised by the gesture. "I want you to know that I see you now," she said. "Not just as my husband, but as the person who makes our life together work. And I never want to forget that again." I stood up and pulled her into a hug. We both learned something important. What is that? That respect is not something you can take for granted. It has to be earned, maintained, and reciprocated. And when both people in a relationship understand that, everything else becomes possible. As I held her, I realized that the man who had walked through that door 3 months ago, the man who had been reduced to nothing more than a domestic servant in his wife's eyes, no longer existed. In his place was someone who knew his worth and was not afraid to demand that others recognize it too. The house around us was clean and organized, but more importantly, it was maintained by 2 people who understood that their partnership was built on mutual respect and appreciation. She had learned to value my contributions, and I had learned to value myself enough to accept nothing less. We were finally equals in our own home, and that I realized was worth fighting for.